P. Sainath, founder of People's Archives of India, and also he's a people's journalist and public intellectual.
Just a few days before the anniversary of demonetization, actually around the time of the anniversary, I was in a small place called Chitradurga in Karnataka. Chitradurga is famous for three things. One, the number of proliferation of religious monks. Second is its famous 16th century fortress. And the third is the best dosa joint that part of the country. It's called Lalita Bhavan Tiffin Home. So there are the temples and the forts, and there is. I of course went to Lalita Bhavan Tiffin. So it's a small place. It's part of the tourist map. I mean, people come from different little towns to the Lalita Bhavan Tiffin. And it's a small place, but downstairs and upstairs, there were notices on the wall. I asked for a translation. It was in Kannada, Kannada gottilla. And I asked, so what does that say? Now this is 1 year after, okay? And the notice says, please don't bring 2,000 rupee notes here. We do not have change, we cannot give you change. And it said either you tender exact change or you do your transactions in smaller denominations. So I got the owner, manager, and asked them, why? I mean, it's been 1 year, man. So, they said, sir, the impact was terrible. We lost 50% of our revenue for 3-4 months. People came to the hotel and went away because of we had to put this up. So I said, okay, you said 3-4 months, right? But after that, there was a recovery. They said, yes, there was a recovery. After 5-6 months, we more or less came back to what we were getting because the currency had come in. So I said, then why are you still keeping the notice? Essentially, what he said amounted to, who knows what they'll do next? So he said, I think I'll keep the notice. I'll keep the notice. You were thinking of that and thinking of the GST and many other things and the political side of what's been happening. I'm reminded again of the stand-up comic George Carlin's famous line. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. Now, in the People's Archive of Rural India, we obviously looked at the demonetization, not from the ATMs of the cities, which is the footage you got in the television, but by the way, rural ATMs account for a fraction of total ATMs, and their runtime is about 20% of the urban ATM runtime. Less than 20%. Thank you. So we were looking at various things from the villages of Uttarakhand in the Himalayas on the border to villages right here. Try imagining this picture from Maharashtra in beads. On the border of Karnataka and Maharashtra are very poor Dalits and Banjaras who the one time in the year they earn something and they have to live on it for several months are sugarcane cutters. Now these sugarcane cutters come for the sugarcane season. They work like slaves. These are predominantly Banjaras and Dalits. And they can earn up to 500 rupees in a day. But you are really, it's the tonnage and how much you cut and all that. But they come with families of 25, clans of 20, 25, and they really slog. Now imagine that the demonetization is announced in the middle of this process. Imagine that the farmers are giving them what they have, which are old notes. And the 500 was the most common. So they were giving them the old notes. After they make their money, they're suddenly told that either you go and bank the old notes or it has no value, please understand that these people have never stepped foot in a bank. Imagine the picture. Now remember, 20-25 of them could be earning 10,000 rupees in a day at 500 rupees. And they do it for 60 days, 90 days, whatever the season goes. The poor things have never, I think maybe sensibly, never gone to a bank before. And they go in. Imagine the picture of this poor guy in his dirty banyan and torn dhoti, slapping 4 lakhs of rupees on the teller's counter. Teller is in a panic. Teller informs manager, informs police, informs IT department. Because they think obviously he is a conduit for some big guy's money. The big guys actually did a lot of that in other ways. I mean, they opened accounts for their migrant laborers. Not only can they put salaries there, they even control the ATM cards of those laborers. Some of the unseen effects of the demonetization can be, in health terms, irreversible. All across much of the country, certainly in Telangana and Maharashtra where we looked at it, millions of children went hungry for months because the midday meal collapsed. Now you see, your midday meal, rice and wheat are on contract. Everything else is bought daily or weekly. Okay? Rice and wheat are on contracts. But vegetables, eggs, milk, greens, these are bought every day. Now that poor lady who is selling you the greens or the vegetables, there's just so much credit she can give you. Right? And the SHGs that were in those days doing the midday meal, there was so much credit they can give. In Osmanabad, in Bid, in Telangana, school after school after school. Okay? The children were eating plain rice with extremely watery dal. Now, okay, 5 months, 6 months later, there is a recovery. What has happened to their health and nutritional status, the damage that could be done to them, including all sorts of, physiological, psychological, physical health damage. That's something we are never going to count and measure. We are not going to be able to count that. We are not going to measure that. That's what happened to them. The other section that really got wiped out, and God knows how many millions of them are there in the country. There are all sorts of fantastic estimates, but we simply do not know. Migrant laborers. By the way, I want to tell you one thing about the demonetization, and I think it should be on record, that across Maharashtra, at least across Maharashtra, where I looked at the banks, the bank employees' unions came forward to help these migrant laborers and poor people, and they kept the banks sometimes open right through late into the night to do the KYC and create accounts for people. And I think we should recognize this, that the unions did this as a public service. In one bank, there was a classic conversation. There were 11 migrants, from Assam, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, UP, and I think one other state, and they were all in the bank. Wonderful bank manager, trying to help them, doing their KYCs, and keeping it open very late because, of course, all the computers had collapsed. And the damn biometric stuff that allegedly exists simply does not work. None of it. And in many places, it doesn't exist. And the conversation was fantastic. Mind you, these are laborers who earn 350 rupees a day in a public sector company. I want you to know that 20 years ago, had they come, after a while, they would have been absorbed in the workforce by the company. Instead of which, the company has outsourced labor to a labor contractor. Okay. This is your generating Power Gen Co, the public sector company, which outsources the labor. Suddenly, all these laborers, their 350 rupees was being given to them in a check. Okay? Now they don't have an account, so they're opening an account. The conversation was fantastic. Till that day, they were transferring their money, such pathetic sums as they got, through postal money orders. Postal money order collapses. When the postal money order collapses, now they have to put that money in the bank and the account. They're asking the bank manager, now, how do I get this money to my family in a village near Kanpur, 180 kilometers, or one was from Bihar, okay, in Jamui in Bihar. So they were, that was at that time the State Bank of Hyderabad, which has since been forcibly merged into the State Bank, like all affiliate banks of this. So they were trying, of course you can't give, there are no checks, it's a no frills account, there's no checkbook. How do you transfer? One guy was asking, Anguta chap chalega usme, ATM card pe. He had a right, it was a legitimate question, because you've done all this bloody biometric exercise. But of course the manager had to tell him, not a chance. In Kolkata at the same time, a migrant laborer and cook was telling my friend in the bank there, that this credit card thing will only make sense if I can cut it into 6 pieces, because I've got that many family members. They're all living and working in different places. How do we use it unless we have 6 cards or cut one card into several pieces? It doesn't make sense. It was horrible that those grown men, 11 of them, I call them the BPL migrant 11, below poverty line, not BPL mobile 11, and were crying because their families were starving. Their agricultural operations in Bihar and near rural Kanpur were dependent on the money they would send. So their families could not buy the in Uttarakhand, people solved the problem simply. All the border villages, Dharchula, the last village on the Nepal border, which is also a stone's throw from the autonomous Tibet region, everybody switched to Nepali rupees. For the first time, usually, the craze is for the Indian rupees. Everybody switched to Nepali currency. It was about 160 Indian rupees to 160 Nepali rupees to 100 Indian rupees. Suddenly the rate reversed, all sorts of things happened, but for the next 6 months people were using Nepali currency. Across the country we had such incredible examples of the things that were happening. Also in Marathwada, I don't know if Pari fellow is in the audience, who did terrific stories from the Marathwada showing the extreme damage done to cotton growers and cane growers, many of whom in that time were selling their produce and to this day have not got their cash or have got checks that have bounced 3 times or more. In Osmanabad, the DCC bank tried to loot the peasantry using the demonetization as an excuse. A bank sent a published letter to the entire 25,000 peasants owed 180 crores. 2 sugar cooperatives owed 360 crores. No letters, no notices were sent to them. But the letter said, we are going to do 3 things to you. We are going to set up a tent outside your house and perform Gandhigiri until you are shamed into paying your dues. This is the Osmanabad District Cooperative Bank. So I think that one should also look at this fact that all these also came atop 20 years of particular kinds of policies. I entirely agree with what Sridhar said, that never in the history of any nation has everybody got together and celebrated a tax. By the way, one of the reasons why the media are hailing the tax, etc., there's a whole set of reasons for that. Yesterday an RTI brought out the fact that the Modi government in 3 years has spent 3,755 crores on advertisements. To give you an idea of how much that is, it is about 60 to 65 times what they spent on pollution control. Okay? 60 to 65, because that was 60 crores, what they spent on pollution control. And 3,755 crores means that you're spending about 1.5 million rupees per hour on advertising. The other reason why the media will not, by the way, the media were hurt by demonetization because a lot of your publications and channels have an incredible amount of off-the-books cash transactions. Paid news was all about cash transactions. Okay? So they were really hurt. So they were whining a little bit where they could, but still did not say that, you are a moron. Yeah? They could say, there's a reason why. All the privatizations that are taking place will take place. Your media owners are the biggest beneficiaries. The richest man in this country is the biggest media owner. Mukesh Ambani is not only the richest man in India, he is more than 3 times as rich as the next richest Indian, which is Deepak Shanghvi. Okay? Look at how inequality has grown in your country in the last 20 years. In 1991, to my knowledge, there was not a single declared dollar billionaire in this country. Not a single declared dollar billionaire. There may have been. In year 2000, Forbes, my favorite website, declared that there were 9 dollar billionaires in India. 9. In year 2000. In year 2012, the year we began our socio-economic caste census, 2009 billionaires, 2012, 53 billionaires, March 2017, 101 billionaires. 101 dollar billionaires. Okay, I mean, from 9 to 101 in a space of what? 17 years, 16 years. The Credit Suisse global wealth data books show us that the concentration of wealth in the top 1% of the Indian population is way higher than their counterparts in the United States. It also shows us that the bottom 3 deciles own virtually nothing in their share of household wealth, almost zilch, 30%. Yeah. So you have that inequality has shown in every sector, and of course it's going to reflect tremendously in agriculture. That is the weakest sector. It's going to hurt agricultural laborers and landed farmers terribly. By the way, it shows in the political sector also. The association in 2004, we started the system of self-declared affidavits of a candidate's wealth in elections. We started that in 2004. In the ADR, Association for Democratic Reforms, found that in 2004, 32% of all your members of parliament in the Lok Sabha were crorepati's. In the 2009 affidavits, those successful candidates, 53% of all MPs were crorepati's. 2014, 82% of all MPs were crorepati's, and these are the people who are going to represent the poorest majority on earth. Okay? 82% of your MPs these are self-declared crorepati's, and we know the extent of modesty when it comes to declaring wealth in MPs. Yeah, but they are 82%. And the rate of increase of assets of re-elected MPs ranged from 300% to some cases of 6,000, 7,000%. No stock exchange, no stock market in the world will give you those returns on investment. Now I mentioned that we had 53 dollar billionaires in 2012. There's a reason I took that as one of the years. We did our socio-economic caste census that year, and the data comes out in 2014. In a country with $101 billionaires, you are ranked 4th in the world in dollar billionaires. 4th. I say second because United States is of course the 800-pound gorilla on the list. The Russians and Chinese come ahead of us in the number of dollar billionaires, but the average per capita worth of their billionaires is much lower than ours. The Chinese are a mere 1.2 billion, ours is about 3.7 billion. Our dads are richer than their dads. At the same time, in 2012, for which that is the period of the survey, 75% of rural Indian households, the main breadwinner took home less than 5,000 rupees a month. If you raise that bar to 10,000, 90% of Indian rural households, the main breadwinner took home less than 10,000. 90% of rural households. What percentage of rural households took home more than the main breadwinner take home more than 10,000? 8%. But if you break that up and look at Dalit and Adivasi households, it's about half the national average, 3.53, and most of those are government employees. Okay, the school teachers, the railway employees, whatever else they are, PWD, that sort of a thing, or maybe a chaprasi at the collectorate, that sort of job. Just look at it: 101 billionaires. And 90% of households in rural India, where the main breadwinner took home less than 10,000 rupees a month. Now you cannot sustain that kind of inequality, and I think it's sad that I'm going to try making a few minutes because Ajit Navle is not here, and I think we are missing a very, very important voice on the agrarian crisis. Okay. Apart from demonetization and GST, there was also this incredibly stupid extension of the cow slaughter ban. Look, it has led to the near extinction of the Kolhapuri chapel. Dalits, again, are the biggest sufferers of that. Okay. Now, people tried getting in vans from outside, from Tamil Nadu, from Krompe. The vans were burned on the way, on the borders by VHP, Bajrang Dal, and everybody else. All the, independent, fraternal, autonomous organizations. Like the Hindu Mahasabha and the RSS. I'm going to digress for a second because I couldn't resist when I was listening to the rewriting of history. We are rewriting it right now. I mean, every day we are rewriting the data on different issues and different subjects. Right? But I just want to tell you one little tidbit about that wonderful gentleman, Dr. Savarkar. There is a biography of Savarkar that appears in the 30s. It is authored by, obviously, a pseudonym, Chitragupta. Now, by the way, Chitragupta is a very significant mythological figure and an appropriate person for Savarkar. He was the scribe of Lord Yama, the god of death. Right? I think a very appropriate fit to be the biographer of Savarkar, the harbinger or the emissary of the god of death. Now this hagiography, you should just read, what a wonderful, handsome figure Savarkar cuts in the biography. It's republished in 40s, it's republished in the 70s. In 80s it is republished, and Savarkar's brother reveals to you that the pseudonym Chitragupta was used by none other than Savarkar himself. So obviously we do know for a historical fact now that Mr. Savarkar had a very high opinion of Mr. Savarkar. sort of person you lionize? This is the sort of fraud that we legitimize? Anyway, that digression apart. You know, the beef ban destroyed people. The agrarian crisis. Maharashtra is the core of it. Look, yes, it is true that 65,000 farmers have committed suicide in this one state, according to the National Crime Records Bureau. I should now tell you that all figures from the last 2 years on farm suicides are a fraud. They're completely meaningless. They've changed categories. They've turned them over and over again. And what do? Finally, they're so sick of, still the damn numbers go up. So they have simply gutted the National Crime Records Bureau. They're merging it into the Bureau of Police Research and Development. Now, the NCRB was terribly flawed. But for all its flaws, it represented data gathered from every police thana in the country. These guys are going to do little surveys, okay, of outsourced to great think tanks in Delhi. Yeah. It's like replacing your national election with an opinion poll. But having said that, and having said that the number of deaths is going up, the bankruptcies are going up, indebtedness has doubled, I still want to tell you this. The agrarian crisis is not just about the loss of human life, though that is terrible and a terrible side of it, the worst side of it. It's not just about loss of production. It's not a measure of how much we have lost in production. It's not a measure of how much we have lost in human life. It's also a measure of how much we have lost our humanity. It's the measure of the shrinking boundaries of our humanness that we can stand by 20 years and watch this incredible misery heaped on farmers and agricultural laborers, and we are quite happy. Please understand this, and hunger and malnutrition, and of course we have advanced 30 or 40 positions in the ease of doing business. And yesterday the Times of India offered us the same solution for the agrarian crisis, improve the ease of doing business for companies in the countryside. All that said and done, the hunger, the crisis, please understand, this is a choice we made. It's a choice we made. Yeah. Your children don't have to be hungry. The kids didn't have to go without their midday meal in that time. It's a choice we make and remain silent in our complicity with the policies that have been heaped on people for 25 years. Right? So and further to the agriculture part, at least some of that people know, the beef slaughter and the agrarian crisis have devastated livestock in this country. The ban, and as it is, the run of capitalism, and by the way, I really have this problem. I think that there is a fundamental stupidity in a belief that you can have perpetual and unending growth. Growth for the sake of growth, as Edward Addy said, is the ideology of the cancer cell. That grows endlessly. Now, if this audit, Yashwantrao Chavan, when you built this auditorium, that you added to the GDP. If you demolish this auditorium, you'll add to the GDP. You rebuild it, you'll add to the GDP. You demolish it again, you'll add to the GDP. Okay. And apart from that insanity, which is why David Attenborough said so beautifully, if you believe in infinite growth on a planet with very finite and rapidly diminishing resources, you are either an idiot or an economist or both. So you have in the middle of all this, you had livestock dwindling in census after census after census. From 2002 census, livestock census is held every year. every 5 years, and this is a livestock census year, 2017. 2007 to 2012, the 18th and 19th census of livestock. Please understand that every 8th rupee an agricultural household earns comes from the livestock sector, 12%. Okay? So, in that situation, there's been a steep decline in cattle, especially indigenous breeds. Overall, the decline is about 3% or 2%, but crossbreeds, exotics have seen a gigantic rise. But poorer people's cattle, indigenous species, cattle are not just about producing milk, by the way. There are other things that people keep cattle. And that's wiped out. All the animals of livestock that poor people have, those have seen ridiculous falls. Goats, sheep, pigs, each of these has seen dramatic falls in total numbers. It means that income support for poor people, like pigs and goats, and that has declined tremendously. Now you come with your additional cattle slaughter, extended cattle slaughter back. You're going to see, I don't know if they may just wind up the 2017 census, but you're going to see a further devastation in that livestock situation. To wind up, your crisis is one of consciously structured, relentlessly, cynically driven inequality. It's a place where you are given incredible power to the corporate world. Your agrarian crisis, according to me, in 5 words, is corporate hijack of Indian agriculture. The process by which that is achieved, in 5 words, predatory commercialization of the countryside. And the consequences of that are the largest human displacement in history. These things together. I just had to say a few words on that because Mr. Navle is not present with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sainath. Brilliant presentation.